series called The Thief of Everything. And so we're talking about this thing that all of us tend to get caught up in, which is comparison, the really fun thing that we love talking about, right? So comparison is when we compare something about ourselves against something of somebody else, right? And so to set up this talk tonight, I want to ask you guys this really important question on if you love this character here. Who really likes Loki? I think Loki is a really cool character. So, guys, Loki is awesome. So if you don't know who Loki is called the God of Mischief in Norse mythology. So it's not just a Marvel character, it's also Norse mythology, which is like really cool and amazing. Which the God of Mischief is also, I will say, probably a really great name for some of you guys in here. I'm keeping an eye on a couple of you. Specifically you, Joey. Yes, I know, we made eye contact with that one. Although, I was just going to say, although I didn't yell toes. That was a good one. You guys are on top of it tonight. So in the movie, Loki is played by this actor called Tom Hiddleston, and he does a really, really good job of showing the part of Loki that is always torn between like good and evil. And so if you don't know, almost all, I would say most all of Loki's issues stems from the struggle with this one particular person. So let's go to the next slide here, which is Thor. I mean, come on, guys. Thor, the god of thunder, Loki's older brother, sibling drama, right? The older one, the younger one's always jealous of the older one. The problem was simple. Loki was jealous, right? I mean, look at these biceps. Who wouldn't be jealous of those biceps, right? I mean, come on. Guys, Thor was the golden child. He was the heir to the throne. And so Loki was just the mischievous little brother that never got anything right, that was always in trouble, right? And so his jealousy took him into all kinds of negative places. And the question is why? The answer to that is because that's all jealousy knows how to do, is to take us into all kinds of negative places. And so I think there's points to where we can really relate to Loki. And now, not in the extremes that Loki went to, if you watched all the movies or know anything about his like mythology, not those extremes. But I think we've all felt jealous of someone at some point or another, right? We've all felt victim of jealousy. Jealousy is a part of what comes when we get caught up into comparison. And jealousy really is just what we feel when we want what someone else has and we don't have that thing, or we think we're not as good as them. And so let me tell you guys a story. So when I was in middle and high school, I had a really, really good friend, and her name was Emma. And now we were involved in a lot of things together. And so she was really fun to hang out with. She was really good at basically everything that she did, which really wasn't a problem because a lot of the things that she was really good at and what she actually did, I wasn't really interested in. Where the problem came into play is that she was way better at making friends than I was. Ugh. If you know anything about me, you know that I love being with people. Community is what gives me life and gives me joy, right? That's why I love what I do with you guys. And so you would know that you could imagine how hard it was for me to seeing how easy it was for her to just walk into a space and to automatically be friends with anybody that she met. It was no matter where it was. It was in band. We were in band together. It was in 7th period AP Human Geography. It was all the way in youth group because she started coming to youth group with me when she was in 8th grade. And so it was in every space. And I found myself feeling all kinds of weird feelings sometimes when I was around her. It was things like resentment, frustration, sadness, annoyance. And now I didn't know it at the time, but I think it's pretty obvious, and you guys could probably guess that it was just good old-fashioned jealousy that I had for her, right? It was total raging envy. And now the big question is this: was my problem with Emma? Not really, because in fact, if it was the opposite way, if the roles were reversed and I was really good at making friends with everybody I met and Emma wasn't, I would have absolutely no problem with her whatsoever. Because, I mean, guys, if we're being honest, I was really good friends with her all the way up through senior year. It's not like we weren't great friends. We were really good friends. We were involved in a lot of stuff together. My problem was that she had something that I wanted. In this case, it was better social skills, personality, community, knowing how to be able to talk to people when you're new at talking with people, right? The awkward small talk thing. I was so bad at it. But you know what? It wasn't really that my problem was Emma. It wasn't that my problem was that she had something that I wanted. The real problem was my heart. Because all of a sudden, I was completely frustrated with someone that did no wrong with me, that had no ill intentions towards me, and had no clue that I was even frustrated with her. I'm sure Emma didn't even know that I was jealous of her all throughout our friendship. But guys, jealousy and comparison are really similar in the way that they're a never-ending cycle, or just a lose-lose situation. Guys, jealousy doesn't just impact our own hearts and our own selves. It impacts our relationships with other people. And then when we're jealous of other people, when we're jealous of someone else, we start to do things like avoid them. We talk behind their backs. We struggle to be happy for them. And eventually, we stop being able to celebrate the good things in their lives because it reminds us that it's what we're supposed to have or what we think we should have or what we do want, right? And you know what, guys? I feel like it's not really that type of life that I want to live. I don't want to live a life of envy and jealousy, right? I don't want to be unhappy simply because somebody has something that I don't. I don't want to be the kind of friend or maybe family member, teammate, or member of a small group who can't celebrate someone else. And I don't think you guys would want that either. I think you could play the tough thing and be like, oh, that thing doesn't bother me. But I think deep down, like, we don't want to be unhappy and be jealous of people. It doesn't make us feel good, right? And so my question is, and what we're really talking about tonight is, how do we keep ourselves from getting caught up in the jealousy that really comes from comparison? And so one scripture that we're going to be diving in tonight, and we're going to take a look at a story that we've actually talked about quite a few times this year. And I think it also has a really good story that will help us with what we're talking about tonight with jealousy. And so we're going to be jumping back into the story of David. Dun, dun, dun. Just to recap, in case you don't know who David is, you weren't here for one of those talks, or maybe you just forgot. David's story is crazy because he goes from a young boy who was just a shepherd to soon after a hero on the battlefield to eventually becoming the king of all of the nation of Israel, right? Which was God's chosen people in the Bible. And so it's a very drastic change of a story. And at first, the king of Israel at the time, when David was young, his name was Saul. At first, Saul liked David. Saul loved David, especially because David killed a giant named Goliath and won an entire battle for the nation of Israel. And that was a really big victory for Saul's army. And so, excited over this victory, the people of Israel greeted Saul with a parade as they were coming home from this battle. And this is when things really start to change. Because you see, Saul had a major issue with how these people were celebrating and what they were talking about in the celebration and their chants and what they were saying. Because the song that they sang, they celebrated both Saul and David in there. He wanted it just to be Saul. As king, Saul didn't want to share his fame with anybody. He didn't want to share his popularity with anybody. And so in other words, Saul was really jealous of David. And we're going to see here what his response is to this chant, to this homecoming that the nation of Israel gave him. So we're going to look at our first scripture for tonight. So it said, "This made Saul very angry." "What's this?" he said. "They credit David with 10,000s and me with only thousands? Next, they'll be making him their king." So from that time on, Saul kept a jealous eye on David, keeping an eye on him. So just like that, jealousy changed everything, changed the way that Saul viewed David, right? Eventually, that jealousy changed the way that he treated David. And then we know from previous talks, eventually it led to him being so jealous, so worried about people liking David over him that he tries to kill David multiple times in this story of David's life. Jealousy changed Saul completely because he was happy with his life and his relationship with David before he started comparing himself to him, right? That comparison led to jealousy, and that jealousy then ended up changing everything. It changed Saul, it changed his relationship with David, and it changed the rest of Saul's life. It wasn't the same after that. And I know that this is a little bit dramatic to compare our own lives to this, but I think it's a really good example to show what jealousy has the power to do. Because it can change the way that we see what we have. It can change and destroy our relationships with other people. It can kill our ability to celebrate the good things that are happening in our lives and other people's lives. And another place in the Bible, a book that is filled with a bunch of wisdom called Proverbs, says this. It says this about jealousy. It says, a heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. So a life of peace, or a heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. So envy is just another way of saying jealousy. It's just a similar word. And as the writer of Proverbs said, it has the potential to rot or break down your bones. I mean, think about your bones for a second. Everybody touch your elbows, touch your shoulders, touch your hips. Do a little shake. I'm just kidding. You can. I don't think you can shake while you're sitting down. But they're a pretty important part of your body, right? They're what's literally keeps us standing, other than your muscles. But there is what holds structure. That's how we have strength and are able to move and do everything, right? They're the core of what holds us up. And so the writer here is just making the point that jealousy rots or ruins us from the core. It breaks us down. And so not literally, if we're jealous about somebody, it's not literally going to eat away at our bones. Our bones are going to be fine. But the writer is just simply painting a picture in our head to imagine what this looks like. It's the way that jealousy impacts our lives from the inside out, right? It starts with our heart and it moves out. And that's what happened to Saul. Jealousy rotted everything in his life. It consumed him, so much so that he could barely run the nation that he was in charge of when he was king. And he eventually lost that titleship. But David, in this story, David keeps his peace. As the proverb tells us, that's what gives life to the body. And see, while jealousy breaks down, while jealousy eats away at us, peace builds us up. It is what makes us strong. And so even though David was hurt by Saul's jealousy, I mean, I would be pretty hurt if somebody tried to kill me too. Somebody that was a big figure in my life ended up being so jealous of me that they wanted to kill me and just get me away. But he never went down the road of comparison with Saul. David kept his eyes on the good that was promised to him and that helped him be able to have peace. And the same is true for us. When we keep our eyes focused on what we have, the good parts about what we have, we will be able to find more peace. When we stop focusing on what other people have, we're able to enjoy the good parts in our lives and find peace. Because guys, the truth is, celebrating is always going to be better than comparison. So I'm going to say that again. Celebrating is always going to be better than comparing. We have that on the slide here. Celebrating is better than comparing, guys. So how do we avoid this? How do we avoid getting caught up in this jealousy and comparison game? How do we choose to celebrate others instead of comparing ourselves to them? And so there's a couple of things that we can do to be able to help with that. The one is we could start with ourselves. So the first thing that we could do is you can start with you. Like we talked about last week, we think about what you do love that's worth celebrating. Whether that's a friendship, something about your family, one good grade that you got on a test, a beautiful day, or maybe just the fact that God loves you just the way you are right now, quirks and mistakes and all. Think about something. There is always going to be something that is worth even a small celebration. And then the second thing here is celebrate somebody else. And now I know that this is going to be the harder part of the two, right? It's going to be a hard one. But I want you to maybe find a way to celebrate somebody that you're jealous of right now. It's going to be really hard, right? Because we have ill feelings towards that person. They have somebody that we want, something that we want or that we think that we deserve. And we got to celebrate them. And so maybe you could do something like congratulate them for doing something awesome. Compliment them on the shirt they're wearing that day. It looks pretty cool. Talk positively about them when they're not there. So like, you know how normally when we're jealous of somebody, we talk crap behind their back, right? We talk some smack. Maybe don't do that. Maybe that's where we start. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So we can maybe even start by just not saying anything about them and then build our way up to say something nice, even if it's just one thing. Even if all you can do is pray for that person. Praying is an amazing way to start being able to flip the narrative and start celebrating somebody instead of comparing them. Now, friends, I know that this stuff is really easy to talk about, but not so easy to apply to our own lives, right? It's really easy for me to come up here and tell you all these things about how jealousy is bad and we shouldn't compare ourselves to others. We do it anyways, right? That's why we have this talk. Guys, that's why God designed us to do life together, so that we don't have to walk through those heavy moments alone. And I know I probably say this every single week, but it's just because it's that important. There is a reason why we have a place for you, a small group for every single one of you in here, so that you guys don't have to walk through this faith stuff alone. So you don't have to walk away from these talks and be like, I don't know what to do. You have a small group who could walk through that with you. If you have nobody else, you have them. You have us. You have your small group leaders and you have your peers. You're not going to walk through that alone because it's a hard thing. I get jealous of people even today, and I have to remember to celebrate instead of compare, and it's a constant thing. But it gets easier when you have somebody there that's beside you to do that together. And so as you guys are heading to small groups, and think about maybe opening up and just saying one thing that's a little bit vulnerable and start opening up that channel for you to be able to have them as a support group. So I want you guys to think about this. Who is one person that you can start choosing to celebrate this week? So let's just start with one person and just one thing that we can do. And then I know a couple of you were asking about these little jars. Look at how cute they are. They're so tiny. Do you see how small they are? You could barely even see it. Inside these jars are pinto beans. What you're going to do in your small groups, well, you're not going to do anything. You're going to get a jar and a bag of beans, so they're not going to be in here. What these beans represent is one way that you chose to celebrate a person during your day. And so every time you choose to celebrate somebody instead of compare yourself to them or instead of getting jealous over them, put just one thing in there, one little bean. So then that way you guys can see the actual changes that you're making so that it doesn't feel like it's a forever thing, so that you could actually physically see the way that you're making progress in celebrating rather than comparing. And then when you fill that up, do something good for yourself. Do something that brings you joy. Celebrate the fact that you filled up this entire container of celebrations instead of comparison. Send a picture to your small group and have them celebrate with you. Send a picture to me and I'll post it online and celebrate you, because that is an amazing thing. Just remember, it is not an easy thing to do and it's going to take time, but at least you could have something and a physical reminder to be able to help you as you're taking those steps.